Good morning. It is SmallBizDavid. On this, the first day of May, a very, very special day for me. And Preston, I didn't discuss this with you, but today is the first day that I qualify for Medicare insurance.
Oh, there you go.
And I have not had decent health insurance for over 15 years, Preston.
Oh my.
It has been a crazy situation with uh, preconditions and 5 or 6 heart surgeries and
Mm.
just total craziness. But I have health insurance today, and you don't know how happy that makes me. We have as our featured entrepreneur from our Dreaming with Entrepreneurs in Google Plus community, Preston Odenbred. Am I pronouncing that right?
Yep, that's correct.
Oh boy, I did a good one on that one. And Preston, why don't you share a little bit about yourself, and then we'll get into a discussion of a couple topics.
Sure. Well, my name is Preston Odenbrett. I've been self-employed for well over 20 years. Started out back in Minneapolis, St. Paul with a company that did coupon advertising and did a lot of other things in between that. You can go to my LinkedIn profile if you want to connect and learn more.
Who was that? Who was that company that you did coupon advertising with?
It was called the Metro Super Saver. We started
So,
out with. Oh, go ahead.
I was going to ask, they were local to your community, or?
Yes, yes.
Well,
It was a startup. I was going to college full time, and I saw something in the board for internships, and I applied, and they hired me, and then I started working for them full time while going to school full time. So it was a good experience.
and what year was that?
1991, I think it was.
Well, the reason I asked that question, in the 80s, I was very, very involved in direct marketing, specifically direct mail. And in the mid 80s, 85, 86, 87, I distributed literally millions of coupons in direct mail.
Oh, really?
Well, do you remember a company called Advo, ADVO?
Yep, we worked with them.
Well, I was one of their top 10 brokers
Okay.
in the mid 80s. So we'll have to talk about that sometime because I haven't seen much in Google, but I think there's some opportunities to do some things. And actually, I'm going to be testing some things in the very near future. We'll see how coupon distribution can really work inside of Google Plus. But I'm working on a project right now that is headed in that direction. And I have a shout out to do right away to Carmen. Good morning, Carmen. How are you? And Carmen, you and I have to determine which day next week that you will be sitting as our featured entrepreneur, as Preston is doing today. So why don't you can enter it in the stream or PM me, but except for Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, or Friday next week. So please let me know, because you have an interesting story about entrepreneurship to share, and I'd like to share that story. Preston, the first thing that I like to do as we open the shows is I have a friend. Her name is Barbara Weltman, and Barbara is a well-known small business tax expert. Matter of fact, the Washington Post and New York Times call her the #1 small business tax expert in the country. And Barbara and I have been interacting for uh, probably about 6 years now, as a matter of fact. She was in some original streaming I was doing on the internet. We used to do a show together on Friday mornings. Anyway, Barbara is um, the strongest. Well, I guess I might be the second strongest. Barbara is the strongest number one advocate for small business that I have ever met, and every day she comes out with a, an idea of the day, and I like to share those ideas with the recommendation that folks who have never visited Barbara Weltman, WELTMAN.com, go and visit and sign up for her daily ideas and also her also her monthly first day of the month newsletter. And I have some very special news about Barbara. She sent me an email yesterday, and Barbara is going to be our community featured entrepreneur tomorrow. How exciting is that going to be?
That's great.
I'm looking forward to that. Uh, the last time I did a hangout on air with Barbara was the day that she was um, publicly introducing a book, and so we talked about it. And there's an HOA in our library about that. But Barbara, as we were talking that day in that particular month, I think it was back in October, if I'm not mistaken, she had 4 books that were being launched in the month of October, and I've never heard anybody having 4 books, coming out all in the same month.
Yeah, that's
So
crazy.
we'll talk a little bit about that tomorrow. But Barbara's idea today was actually something that stimulated me. She talks about a contest that Mercedes-Benz is having, and you need to submit a 60-second, I don't have to go back and read, but you have to submit a video of what you would do with a custom design Mercedes-Benz van, whatever they call their van. And I have a plan. I am going to submit that to their contest, Preston, because I've had a dream of mine. It was more than a van; it was a bus that toured around the country and made stops in cities, and we did our daily HOA in whatever city that I was in that particular day, and we were gonna have a lot. I was gonna have a lot of fun with it. I was just gonna travel across the country and visit cities and invite people to come in and talk about help them with their business, whatever we did. So I'm actually going to enter that contest.
Cool.
And if I have to ask people to vote for me, I'm going to ask Google Plus folks to vote for me to make it happen. But I'm looking forward to that. But also, Barbara has some very good stories. Today's the first of the month, and the first story that she has in her newsletter is kind of interesting. I had to think about it for a moment, but it's paying employees with something other than cash. Now, not necessarily on an ongoing basis, but replacing maybe whatever you could work out with them. And she was actually targeting something more than one people operations. I call it barter in the really small business world, barter, collaboration, whatever. But she comes up with an interesting concept that maybe small businesses have employees that might want to have some property that you own, and you could use that and work out. So she talks about that. It's a very interesting discussion, and so I urge people to go to barbaraweltman.com and sign up for Barbara's daily email and also her first of month Big Ideas for Small Business newsletter. Okay. We'll see Barbara tomorrow at 11:30. Preston, the other thing, another story that caught my attention in the last day or two, let me bring it up on not on the big screen, but on my screen here. And I am sure you're going to have some comments on this because every time I do bring up this discussion, um, people talk about it. But it's don't give up. Small business owners say it was from a blog. Let me see. The date of the blog is actually May 1st, so it came out today. It was published in the Charlotte Observer, charlotteobserver.com. I used to live in Charlotte, North Carolina, as a matter of fact. My first entrepreneurial opportunity was in Charlotte, North Carolina, just out of college. But a gentleman by the name of Roberts wrote a very interesting story about don't give up, small business owners say, and it's essentially one of I, I have three P's when I talk about entrepreneurship, and maybe Preston, you have some key words that you use in talking about entrepreneurship, but the words I use are passion, and I think that's probably most entrepreneurs' first word is a P word, passion. We have to be very passionate about what it is that we do, uh, and never lose that passion, because once we do lose it, we are probably should be doing something different in our lives. You agree with that statement?
Oh, absolutely. I mean, passion is what drives you, and I think, you have to have a why too, a big enough why to go about doing what you're doing, because there are some days you're like, what am I doing? Why am I working so hard just to do this, So totally passion you have to have.
To that point, did you hear me on Monday do the Entrepreneur's Pledge?
No, I didn't get it.
I got to post that a link to it, but I once every 2 months I like to publicly do the Entrepreneur's Pledge, and I always keep it close at hand because I've never seen words that describe better the why of what I do or we do as entrepreneurs. When you say what is the why, and I'll put a link in today's event stream. I think I will, because they used to have a website, and I don't know if they still do or not. But it's a pledge, and Preston, when you read that pledge, there you will immediately discover your why. It's
Good.
it's one of those things that it's just very, very thought-provoking, stimulating, and I like to read it. I just read it this week, so I'll put a link in the event stream about that. But yes, you need to understand your why it is you do what you do. You do it with passion. And the theme of this story, Don't Give Up, Small Business Owners Say, they talk about persistence, which is actually my second P word, is persistence. I think that's really what probably got my attention in this particular discussion. Over the years, I think uh, the two words that people have used to describe me, and they were friends, they weren't necessarily doing it publicly, but privately to me. David, you're very passionate about what you do, and you're also very persistent about what you do. And my standard answer in talking about persistency is, you know why I'm persistent? Well, no, David, why are you persistent? I said, because it's the right thing to do. And if it were not the right thing to do, I wouldn't be so persistent about it. And it kind of ties into your why. Why do we do the things that we do?
Yeah.
So persistence is a great thing. And once again, when you stop with your passion, or you stop with the persistence in what you do, you probably should be doing something else in your life. Then there's the third P, which this article does not discuss, but it's my third P, and that's patience. I am a very, very patient individual because I think I totally understand that when we have a business, or whatever it is that we do in life, and uh, it's easy to talk about it in terms of a business, because we're asking people to buy something from us, a product, a service, whatever it may be, and inherent in the discussion about uh, somebody buying something, um, is the fact that we are asking that individual to change their behavior. They're
Mhm.
going to do something new that they haven't done before. And they might have bought your service before from somebody different, but when you are asking them to be your customer, you're asking them to change your behavior. And people do not change behaviors overnight.
Nope.
It's just one of those things. You have to educate them, engage them, and do what it is that we do. And you know what? There's no better tool for that than the tools available to us in Google Plus, specifically doing Hangouts. If people hear what it is that you're all about, they start to understand that. They start to formulate in their minds, hey man, I really like what he is saying, and if he's got something to sell, I'll think about buying it. I mean, that's kind of the process. Have you found that to be the case in your career as an entrepreneur, Preston?
Oh, absolutely. You know, if you don't have that persistence, the passion, like you said, you're not going to go that far, because I remember when I was starting this other project. I'm going to switch my little things so people can see if it shows up actually, the lower third. But and it's not, of course. It's called
It is not, of course.
called Skyline Webcam. So there it goes. And what we did is basically I started out here in Honduras, and of all places, I started looking at locations where I could put these cameras, because these are high definition cameras, so they show quality of the places and locations which are beautiful. And I tried here on the mainland close to the coast, but a lot of them spoke Spanish. So I had a hard time in communicating, even getting a talk with somebody who's in charge of the marketing. But I was persistent, and then I said, enough's enough. I'm going to go directly into Roatan, because they speak English, and a lot of the resort owners are English speaking. So I started calling them. The problem was, is when I started it was in August of last year. Um, it was the wrong season. It was kind of hurricane season, so most of the people I called weren't even around. They didn't answer their emails, and I didn't know that. I got a hold of a few, and then finally things started rolling after, I think it was December, because then they also had an election. They also had some other stuff they had to pay for because of the situation with the coastline, protecting the coastline. And so it was very, very difficult for many, many months to try to get something out there. But then I actually did go visit them, and then they started to know me better. And then, of course, then I got orders, and then I came back with the cameras and installed them. So it was a long process. I mean, I started it back in I think it was the end of August, and finally got things up now March. So if you want to see them, you can go to their website and go to webcams, go to Honduras, and you'll see the ones I got up there. I'm supposed to have another three supposed to go up there, but they're not up yet. So I got to be
Timing,
persistent on that.
well, also too, timing
Yep.
plays into the formula big time. And when folks are going through a hurricane, that's not great timing for. I mean, they're now fighting for their lives, so to speak, and it makes things all the more challenging.
Yeah, it was more a hurricane season, so what a lot of resorts do is they close down for the season. I had no idea, so.
You learned very quickly, though, didn't you?
Oh yeah, yeah.
Okay, well, this week too. It just so happened this week that um, two folks that I network with on Google Plus, and I'm not really going to mention names. Uh, One of them went public and actually made the statement that um, well, they do the entrepreneur thing, and they made the statement that their spouse had said, well, if you don't get a job, this marriage is in jeopardy. I mean, and that information was shared, which I found kind of strange. But at any rate, that individual went out and did some public posting, and you know, anybody. One thing about Google Plus, and we've all found it in one way or another, that when you go out and you ask people for help, there's always help available. People always make themselves available. I have found that to be the case. Have you ever put any kind of posting out there, Preston, where whatever it was, something small, something large, where you were asking for assistance, and what kind of response did you get?
Well, I got a lot of response, obviously, within communities that I am part of, because obviously they know me a little bit better than the general public. But yeah, absolutely. I think just because of the fact of how Google Plus is formed, with Google, you get to know people, you get to see people, you get to interact with people, and some of these people that I interact with are just phenomenal. I mean, they're very successful, and they really know what they're doing. I mean, obviously you know Jason T. Weiser. I mean, he invited me into his community way back when we first started it, and I just love it. I spent a lot of time there. But to get to know people, and I try to help them too. I mean, if they need help or something, I try to give them resources or give them other people that I know and trust. So absolutely, and I think that's part of the community. When I post it out to the general public on my stream, I don't usually get a lot of reaction, but in the communities I do.
Well, Jason T. Weiser uh, is uh, is definitely out there. I had a really interesting experience with Jason, as a matter of fact. And you talk about timing and events and what have you. Uh, Jason, up until I don't know, 3 months ago, lived in the Ukraine,
Yeah.
and we all know, because we're reading it almost on a daily basis, how bad things are in the Ukraine. And Jason was supposed to be on a panel that I had put together for doing a hangout. And literally 24 hours before that hangout, and this is before things got really, really bad in the Ukraine, he sent me a message saying, "David, I can't do your hangout. I've got to get my family out of the Ukraine." I mean, it got down to that. It was happening all at the same time. I said, "Wow, take care of business."
Exactly.
and so lo and behold, we started the HOA, and about 15 minutes into it, Jason joined the HOA.
Oh, really?
And I think he might have still been in the Ukraine, hadn't actually left yet. I'll have to ask him that, or he just gotten to where his destination is. Well, he's in Florida now, but yeah, he's had a lot of interesting experiences, and he does great HOAs. If you've never attended a Jason Weiser HOA, you need to, because he's got the ability to attract folks who are experts in the topics that Jason establishes. So you need to visit that. Okay, there was another.
Called On Track Tips.
On Track Tips is correct.
Yeah, and he's been through a lot of branding on that too, because what he had before was not the same thing. So it's great to see him grow like this. I mean, he has such a heart, and he cares a lot for people, and he does so well with his clients that it's great to see him exploding right now on G Plus. I love going to his HOAs. They're very professional.
And actually, it was kind of interesting too. He had this fellow on one time doing an HOA with him, and the fellow made a comment that I heard him say Cincinnati, Ohio. I said, "Wow,
Yeah.
I live in Cincinnati, Ohio," and lo and behold, the gentleman that Dan Krask is his name.
Yeah.
Dan lives 20 minutes away from me, and I actually uh, did a featured entrepreneur interview with Dan, and it was just last week. He did an HOA with me. Dan is a branding expert,
Yeah.
and he one of the major themes in our community that we will talk about at any time, and if anybody would like to come and talk and share or have questions, monetizing HOAs is foremost on a lot of folks' mind. Foremost on my mind. I stated back in November that one of my major objectives, business objectives, for uh, 2014 was actually to have a process, a system, a program in place that monetized my HOAs. And so we are very arduously uh, pursuing that, and I'm going to have a discussion with a large brand probably next week, and I gave them enough hot buttons, if you will. You know, I want to bring up a point here, Preston, and like your comment on this, but a lot of people think that uh, they all they need to do is just kind of be out there and do an HOA. They might have an audience, they might have an engaging topic, and that people will automatically want to sponsor them, advertising them, and that's not how the world really works. You need to have a you need to really understand what it is that you're doing, and how can you share with a potential host or sponsor that what you're doing is something that they should be interested in based upon your ability to engage with your audience, and based upon the content that you have, and based upon the number of folks that engage in your HOA. Those are all important factors, and we somehow, it's not like waving a magic wand and saying someone's going to want to sponsor us. But one of our themes in the community is monetizing HOAs, and you cannot monetize your own HOA first and foremost until you have a clear understanding what your brand is, what's your message, what are
Yeah.
you trying to accomplish, how are you going about trying to accomplish whatever it is that you do. So the development of your brand is extremely important to a potential sponsor who has their own brand that they need to
Exactly.
market. Um, have you had any experience in that area, Preston?
No, I've been hearing about it, from some of the leaders out there talking about how to monetize it, because obviously they're spending a lot of time and energy in putting these shows together, and they should get sponsors to be able to pay for a portion of that. But you're right. I mean, if you don't have an audience, they're not going to be interested. If you don't have the quality people, if you don't have the interaction, if you don't have the social media signals, you're not going to go anywhere. I mean, and you have to have a format that you can continually do on a regular basis, because if you miss like a few of them, people are, or you have different times scheduled, and you miss one, and oh well, I'll have to make this one. It just doesn't work. You have to be consistent with it, you know because people, if you have good quality content, people will follow that. If you don't have good quality content, they're just going to say, I'll go somewhere else. I mean, there's a lot of people on HOAs, not a lot, but there's a lot of people on Google Plus that are getting into HOAs, and there's some big quality people who have a lot of experience just running, video, or running even TV shows, and they're going to be doing HOA stuff pretty soon, and you're going to see some higher quality HOAs come out. So if you want to compete as a small business, I would learn as much as you can, because there's a lot to learn. There's a lot of stuff you have to have in place.
Uh, uh, Carmen just mentioned something, and I was going to tell you I wanted to let you finish what you're saying, but
That's true.
your camera's not working.
It's not working. What happened? Oh, it
Uh,
must have timed out. I wasn't watching. I'm sorry. Yeah, it's the problem when you use a digital camera. It times out after I think a half hour. There's my son.
Hello.
So now I gotta. No, instead of seeing all that mess.
There you go. You're back on.
Yeah. There. Sorry about that.
Okay. Well, the other story that I wanted to talk about, and I think I'm just going to give brief mention of this, and we will come back to it because I can't do justice to the conversation in um, in the time that we have left. Um, but it talks about brands, and it talks about luxury brands, and what uh, how do they project themselves. And as I was reading this particular article, it was about luxury brands, and the question was, do luxury brands have to be different online? And as I was reading what this particular author had to say in a daily email that I get from an operation called eConsultancy, uh, very high quality email. I get it every day, and lots of great information. I often share that information. But they were posed the question: do luxury brands have to be different online? The author, and let me see the author's name here, Graham Carlton, and this was written just a day or two ago. Yesterday, actually, was the dateline on it. Um, asks the question: do luxury brands have to be different? And his short answer is, I suspect the answer to this is a resounding yes. Is there any suspect on that one? People buy from luxury brands for various reasons, and let me share those reasons, Preston, and maybe you have a comment of why we might buy a luxury brand. Number one is status, showing off. Look at me. I can afford a 6,000 pound watch. Obviously, it's a pretty fancy, and that's not me that's saying that. It's the example that the author is using. I would never have a 6,000 pound watch. It might weigh 6,000 pounds, but it certainly wouldn't cost 6,000 pounds. In fact, there seems to be a market in producing stupidly expensive items just for this purpose. Number two, quality. If you buy a 6,000 pound watch or a designer dress, you're expecting higher standards of craftsmanship. Exclusivity. Point number three, scarcity is a big part of this. People want a piece of clothing, etc., that very few others have. And number four, the experience. People look for different buying experience and certainly a better class of customer service. Well, as I read those things, sure, luxury brands are absolutely interested in those things. That's why people buy a luxury brand for those reasons. But is that any different? A luxury brand or a brand or service that we might have to offer in the marketplace, wouldn't people be buying it for those same reasons?
Well, I think, yeah, I think you can become a luxury brand, and it obviously is based upon service, is based upon quality. Obviously, it's based upon price. You're not going to get a very luxurious brand for $1,000. You're going to spend a lot more than that. I think small businesses can have a luxury brand. You know, for instance, our HD webcams, we have one brand or type of camera that basically is the basics. But if they want a luxury brand one, we can give them more, you know, better quality, possible audio, possible, where you don't have to actually connect to the internet, it'd be Wi-Fi, underwater cameras. Those are kind of premium. Not everybody's going to buy type product, but there are a few resorts that want that, and they're willing to pay the price for it because they know it's something that no one else has. They'll be kind of the one in the area that they're the only ones that have it. So you can create a brand, I think, within a small business, and it can be luxurious, but you just have to be careful on how you do it because you don't want to alienate the people that are really your bread and butter. My smaller businesses are my bread and butter. My bigger clients, yeah, it's nice to have them, but it takes a long time to find those too. It just doesn't come up overnight.
And well, and a brand or a client is going to invest in you because they feel that you can deliver something that nobody else can deliver.
All right.
Which is conceptually the same kind of thing as buying a $6,000 watch or 6,000 pound watch, which um, is there aren't a lot of 6,000 pound watches out there, and you would expect the very, very best from that watch, that timepiece, and you would expect something well worth your investment of 6,000 pounds. And there's an ego thing that's attached to that, as the author said, that geez, if I'm wearing that, people think that I have to be successful, and people want to do business with successful people. I'm reminded of that example that I've heard for years and years and years, that if you're buying insurance, whatever kind it is, and your insurance agent drives up in a fancy car, it's kind of like, wow, I need to buy insurance from that individual because if they can afford a fancy car, they must be doing a really great job in their business. Have you heard that same theory?
Oh, absolutely. I mean, the only problem with that theory is that you have some people who will rent cars, those fancy cars, just to prove to you that they're
Oh, is
successful.
that how that works?
Some people do. I've seen it. I've seen it, and I'm like, are you kidding me? Because the next time you see them, they're in a Pinto or something. But I don't think you need. I mean, some people say you have to fake it till you make it. I think you need to have a mindset of being successful, but there are certain things that you can't control, and you want to be successful, and the only way you can be successful is if you have a business that people want to do business with you. you know. But it doesn't happen overnight. I mean, there's so many people that I think get in business, and I've done it. I basically said, okay, I'm going to do this. I got a plan. I know exactly what I'm going to do, and 6 months later, I give up. Well, you can't do that. You got to be in it for the long haul. You can't just say, oh, I'm going to try it for 6 months. It doesn't happen, because it's like you try to pick up a pen. If it drops on the floor, you can't. You either pick it up or you don't.
Interesting, because we're back to where we started our discussion today, back to persistence.
Yeah.
And persistence definitely uh, lasts longer than a 6 month period. Well, we're pulling up to the end here, Preston. I want to thank you for taking your time out from the Honduras to share your thoughts about some topics of discussion today. I can say that in terms of future HOAs here in our community, tomorrow, you heard me say it earlier, Barbara Weltman will be our featured entrepreneur. I haven't gotten back yet to understand exactly what we're going to be talking about tomorrow, but it will have something important about big business. I'm sorry, small business. Big business has their own sets of problems, and it's not tax time. Tax time is behind us, but Barbara will share, I'm sure, some smart tax strategies, small business tax strategies for 2014. And I just read that her book that we talked about here in an HOA back in October uh, called Smooth Failing. And it was a living, I think she called it a living book back then, meaning that as new chapters developed, they would be introduced into the book. It was a new concept in publishing, certainly something you do very easily in the online world. Well, when we first talked with Barbara back in October, she had 10 chapters to her book, 10 different entrepreneurs that she interviewed who failed in their businesses and started over again because they were persistent in their desire to do whatever. And after failing, then they all went on to successful businesses. And you probably don't recognize many of the names of those entrepreneurs, but you certainly recognize the names of the companies that those entrepreneurs built after they had a failing business.
Oh, you see that
That,
all the time, yeah.
yep. And then Carmen just committed that she is available on next Tuesday. Thank you, Carmen, for doing that. So Carmen will be our featured entrepreneur, and once again, we'll have some topics of discussion. And Carmen actually shared her entrepreneurial spirit and vision in an HOA that she just came on. I think it was probably about 2 Saturdays ago. I was doing a Saturday morning HOA that actually starts an hour earlier than this one does, and she was in the audience, and I invited her to come in. She had made some comments, so while it was happening, I invited her to come in and share some thoughts. How neat is that, Preston? I mean, that's
That's
like
awesome.
real time. You don't get any better than that, do you?
No, that's
Oh,
how
I
you
like.
how to get more guests. That's a good idea.
Well, I like your comment. You want to come in and expound upon it. That's the beauty of this technology that we're
Yeah,
using. That whole factor of engagement. So thank
absolutely.
you, folks. Thank you, Preston, for taking time. Thank you to the uh, other folks who came, and I hope that you were able to get something of value from the comments that I made and Preston made. And we look forward to seeing you tomorrow at 11:30 Eastern Daylight Time. And tomorrow, when we see each other, may very well be the best time. We'll see you then.
Thanks, David. Appreciate it.